GTM Podcast 38 Blessing of Life Buddhist Knowledge Blessing 7 Part 4. Hello everyone. You are listening to GTM Podcast. We have come so far reaching Part 4 of the Acquire Proper Knowledge in Blessing 7. Today we will talk about the learning process that can allow us to progress in spirituality. 1. Coming into contact with someone knowledgeable. Well, one of the hardest things is to find a teacher who will give the necessary encouragement to bring one's studies to fruition. The Buddha taught in the Singalovada Sutta is about the 6 directions or 6 quarters. We will talk about that in the future podcast. That successful studies are established on the basis of reciprocal duties that a student practices towards his teacher and that a teacher practices towards their student. Duties collectively referred to as duty to southern quarter. If a student finds a teacher that they think they can learn something from, they should start to learn from them. The teacher should practice the following 5 duties toward their pupil by making sure 1. The student is well trained. 2. That the student is taught in such a way that he understands and remembers well what he had learned. 3. That the student is truly instructed in the law of every art without holding knowledge back. 4. To give praise to the student which raises his esteem amongst his peers. 5. The student's security and safety in every quarter, for example, toward his parents, wife, children, employees, friends, and spiritual mentor like monk or priest, is ensured while pointing out the loopholes and weakness present in any body of knowledge. Meanwhile, the student should minister to his teacher by 1. Greeting to welcome them. 2. By serving them in things which facilitate the teacher's convenience. 3. By obedience to the teachings or an eagerness to learn. 4. By personal service. 5. By attentively and respectfully learning the arts and science that they taught. If a student fails to fulfill their duties, but the teacher does their part, the student is unworthy of the teacher, and it will not be surprised if the student can never become skilled in knowledge. Catastrophe will await the student. If the teacher fails to fulfill their duties, but the pupil does their part, then the teacher is unworthy of the student. And perhaps the student should look elsewhere for a better teacher. Catastrophe awaits the teacher. If neither the student nor the teacher fulfill their duties, catastrophe will await both student and teacher, and their failing will have negative consequences for society at large. However, if both student and teacher fulfill their duties to one another, both parties will have a bright future and their behavior will have positive consequences for society at large. 2. Finding the opportunity to hear what they teach. If you are still the sort of person who skips lectures and copies the note later, you are unlikely ever to make a success of your career as a student. This applies both to the contact with your teacher and reading from the textbooks. It means questioning in order to further your knowledge. Whatever knowledge you learn, try to divide it up into these 4 aspects and study all 4. Only then you can say that you have mastered that knowledge. Such an assessment of your own knowledge will prevent you from slipping into the premature overestimation of the amount you know and give you the encouragement to keep listening to people's knowledge. 1. Knowledge in depth. You need to make sure that you understand deeply what you have learned. You need to know the roots and origins of everything you study, its past. If you are a doctor and you see a patient ill with certain symptoms, by looking at their face, you can tell immediately about the prognosis of their illness right from 10 or 20 years ago. Don't go believing things simply because they are traditional or customary without understanding the reasons for such belief. 2. Knowledge in breadth. You need to have a broad knowledge, the present, not only of your own narrow specialism, but also about all the things that concern your everyday life. Even if you study the arts, you still need to know the elements of electricity because you use electricity in your everyday life from the time you get up in the morning to the time you go to bed. If you have studied science, you still need to know about the arts, otherwise you will not understand how to communicate emotions, feelings, and ideas from one person to another in different forms, whether it may be written or visual. If you don't study then, you can be best engineer in the world, but if you have no gift of communicating with people, you will just be digging holes for the rest of your life. 3. True knowledge. Not only will you know your own narrow subject, but you will know the connections which it has with others' issues, as if you know the influence of that knowledge all the way from the mainstream up to the edge. 4. Long-sight knowledge. You need to have a long-sight knowledge. You need to know how things will turn out in the future. You need to know how one thing leads to another. 3. Listening attentively. You need to listen to remember, not just sit in the lecture picking your fingernails and chatting to your friends, with no idea what the lecture was about at the end. 4. Memorizing knowledge learned. If you make no effort to memorize what you have learned, you will never become a person who has heard much. Memorization is an implicit part of the duty of a monk, and it is expected of monks by the lay congregation. If the knowledge stays in the books, it is like having money, but having lent it all to someone else. If you want it back instantly, even though it is yours, you cannot get it back instantly. Even though you know which textbook you can find a certain piece of knowledge in, you will go reaching for the book one day and find that worms have eaten just the page you need. 5. Reflecting on knowledge memorized. You have to digest new knowledge in your mind and look for causes and effects. Meditating is the most efficient way of digesting new knowledge. 6. Applying knowledge for one's own benefit. We will talk about this in Blessing 8. 7. Applying knowledge for the benefit of oneself and others. Again, we will talk about this in Blessing 8. So that's everyone. This is the learning process that we should apply when we try to acquire proper knowledge in our life or whatever knowledge we are about to learn. So thus, we will continue in the next episode. The practical tips for becoming learned and illustrative example. So stay tuned. If you like the program, don't forget to subscribe, like and share with your friends to continue supporting our program. See you again next time.